All right, as we begin to work with After Effects, we're going to begin to explore more sophisticated ways of creating animation. And we're going to look at something called a mat or a track mat. Okay? So this is something that you use all the time in After Effects. After you see how it's deployed, you can probably imagine a number of different ways to deploy this. And after you finish this exercise, take some time to experiment with it and see if you can come up with alternate methods of using the trackmat. So this is basically what we're going to be creating. Let me kind of close down the section bar here. Oh, let's get a little more over here. So what we got here is we got the text flying up out of that bar. The bar flies on screen and then the text comes up. Let's do our own version together. I'm going to make a new canvas or a new project, let's see here, what do we want? We want to close this project. And I've already saved this. And then I'm going to start with a new composition. I'm going to make the background color, let's make it blue this time. Click OK. And the first thing I'm going to do is put some text on the screen. And I'm using Verdana. This will work good with any large, thick font. I'm going to make it a little smaller here. Select the text. Something like that looks good. Then I'm going to align it center on the screen. We're all already off to a good start. So now what I want to do is I want to create another shape. I'm going to click on the shape tool. Now I want to make sure that this layer is not selected, so I'm going to click away, click on the shape tool, and let's draw the shape with a fill. Let's make the shape red so it's easy to identify. I'm going to take the stroke off and draw the shape that covers it, something like that. So what we want to do is take that top shape and turn it into a mat, a track mat. It's actually going to make it a knockout, right? So if you've ever worked with Photoshop and used sort of effects and layer styles, in Photoshop, there's actually a lot of stuff that's very similar as far as knockouts or keys. It's very similar type of thing. So what I want to do is I have to change the interface over here. I have to go down to the bottom and click this little button that says toggle switches modes. And when I click toggle switches modes, it's going to bring up an extra column called track mat, right? So I want to click on that, turn that track mat on, and you'll see that the text is invisible. Let's do this differently. Instead of putting the track mat on there, let's go on to the text underneath, and let's add the track mat of the alpha mat shape layers. Let's label this track mat up here so we don't get confused, like I was starting to. And then here's our text. I'm going to label this text. And then what I want to do is I want to come down here where it says track mat. I'm going to say alpha mat, track mat. There we go. So now the text has disappeared, right? But if I'm on that text layer and I grab my move tool and move it around, you'll see that the text disappears everywhere except for where the mat is, right? So now that gives me an idea. I can make it look like the text is appearing on the screen. So I'm going to lock that top layer with the track mat. I'll go down to the text layer. I'm going to go down to transform, and I'm going to do a position animation, and I'm going to drag it to second out, and I'm going to click the position stopwatch, so it's going to end up there. Then I'm going to drag it to the first frame, and I'm going to grab my vertical position key and drag it down, and now I have the text flying up into place. Cool, right? Now, I'm going to select those two keyframes. I'm going to right click, keyframe assistant, give it a little easy ease. I'm going to turn on, I'm going to go toggle switches and modes and turn on my motion blur. Right, and then I'm going to select those two keyframes again, go to the graph editor, and play with my speed graph here. Grab those two keyframes, drag them in a little bit so that it kind of has a little bit of punch when it flies in. That looks pretty good. I don't see the motion blur. It's on, but it doesn't seem like it's doing a whole lot here. And that's the beginning here of our animation. If I make the animation go further down, it'll have more speed. So let's change the position of the first keyframe. I'm going to drag it further down on the positions key. I'll just do it here. And now when it flies up, there you go. It's got a little bit more speed to it. All right. So now I'm going to drag this about halfway through so I can see where the text is. And I want to set this to fit. And I'm going to draw another line. So I want to make sure that nothing is selected. Grab my pen tool, set the fill to none, set the stroke to white, and I'll use a pixel depth of 25 pixels with the pen tool because I want to animate the paths like we did in the last exercise. I'm going to click, hold down the shift key, click again, and there's my straight line. And we go to align it through the center. And I'm going to close the text layer and go up to the shape layer. And I want to click the add button and choose trim paths. So I want it to be fully visible here. So what I want to do, let's go to the first frame of our animation. I want to go down into trim paths. And I'm going to set the, so we're going to animate the two ends. So I'm going to set the start to 50 and the end to 50. Then I'm going to go, let's go 15 frames in. Oh, I forgot to set my keyframe. Let's go back to the first one and turn those on. Now I'll go 15 frames in and set the first keyframe to 100 and the second to 0. And it should animate on like so. So now if we play our animation, we got it just about perfect there, didn't we? And there's our trackmat animation. All right. So if I take the scrubber, collapse the timeline a little bit, grab the scrubber, drag it inside, and I can preview my animation. Let's do a little more span. I could go in and I could work on the speed of the line pasting in, or work on the speed of the text flying up. That's a pretty good explanation of how mats work in After Effects. And you can, of course, do this with text and with stills and with video. Let's stop here.